Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the April 4th, 2024 Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the agenda today, there are speaker request forms to the left of the dais. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the secretary. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Public hearing on item number 1, the approval of the February 8th Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting minutes, is hereby opened.
Second.
All right, Mike Gallagher made the motion to approve those meeting minutes, and Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2.
Good morning, Commission. Cassie Hayes. Item number 2 is a variance request. This is a request to increase the maximum height from 15 feet to 19 feet 6 inches for a detached garage with a second-story accessory dwelling unit. This property is zoned low-density residential District 1. Future land use of this property is low-density neighborhood. This is located on Pine Hills Drive, which is a local street that's accessed off of Sturgis Road, which is a principal arterial street. So what you have before you, this variance you have actually seen before. There was a variance approved in 2023 to allow the height of 19 feet 6 inches for a 2-story garage with the second story being storage space. This variance request is before you to allow that second story to be finished as an accessory dwelling unit rather than storage space as it was originally intended. So the structure that we are looking at up here on the screen is this shop building that's over here. In association with this variance, there is also a conditional use permit that was approved in 2023 with stipulations that allowed this garage to be an oversized garage as it does exceed 1,500 square feet. And one of the stipulations of that conditional use permit was that the garage shall not be used for commercial purposes or as a second residence. So as you can see on the agenda, there is also a major amendment to the conditional use permit that will come before you as the Planning Commission as well. So what we are looking at here is this is what the main floor of this structure looks like. This is the garage space. This is the second story of this structure that was originally going to be storage space, now proposed to be the accessory dwelling unit. It is 1,079 square feet in size, which is smaller than the footprint of the residence as required by the ordinance. At this time, Rapid City Sewer and Water Services are not available in this area. The existing single-family dwelling is served by a private septic system and well. However, due to shallow bedrock, the detached garage and the proposed ADU are not able to be connected to the existing septic system, and they utilize two 2,050-gallon holding tanks for black and gray water. The general purpose of the height restriction for accessory structures is to protect the character of residential neighborhoods and preserve the privacy of neighboring properties. And the intent of the ADU is to support affordable housing and workforce housing options with reasonable limitations to minimize the impact on neighboring properties. When the ADU ordinance was under review in 2019, one of the primary concerns that was voiced in several public open house meetings was for the height of a detached ADU specifically and the impact that a second story ADU could have on the privacy of neighboring properties. So the intent of the ADU ordinance is to support those ground level ADUs through the height restriction. So there are multiple undeveloped properties within this Pine Hills subdivision, including the adjacent properties north, south, and east of the subject property. And so it's unknown what impact a second-story ADU could have on those undeveloped properties and the neighborhood. So a second-story ADU right now does not really protect the value of the undeveloped properties or maintain a reasonable expectation of privacy for future development on neighboring properties. Also, approval of this request to allow a second-story ADU could create a precedent for future and other similar projects, which is not in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the ADU ordinance. So in order for the property owner to build this second story as an accessory dwelling unit, they will need approval of this variance, approval of the coming major amendment to the conditional use permit, and then they will need to do a new building permit for the accessory dwelling unit. They currently do have an approved building permit for the garage with the second story being storage exclusively. They do have that approved building permit and they have started construction. These are the plans that were submitted for the front elevation of the garage. This is looking into the driveway of the property. This is the garage as it currently exists today. This is looking to the west of the subject property from the driveway of the ADU. This is looking south down the property from the ADU. This is again looking west, just a little bit further down the driveway. Verification of the holding tanks underneath the concrete. This is looking from roughly where the house sits on the property, looking west. So this would be the nearest dwelling unit right now, sits about 175 feet south of where the garage with the ADU sits. Some of the other accessory structures, the house that exists on the property, more of the other accessory structures that currently exist on the property. This is looking west down Pine Hills, and this is looking east down Pine Hills Drive. So staff recommends at this point denial of the request to increase the maximum height from 15 feet to 19 feet 6 inches for a detached garage with a second-story accessory dwelling unit based on the following criteria. Number one, there are no special circumstances or conditions pertaining to the lot which would warrant approval of the variance. Number two, when the applicant submitted the prior variance in March 2023 to allow the two-story garage to exceed the 15-foot height restriction, it was stated in the application that there was no intention of making living quarters above the garage area. Number three, reasonable use of the land exists without granting the variance, as they can continue to construct the garage as it is with second-story storage pursuant to the prior variance and conditional use permits that were approved and the approved building permit. Number four, this variance request is beyond the minimum adjustment necessary for reasonable use of the land. And number five, when the ADU ordinance was under review in 2019, again, the primary concern from the public was privacy related to those second-story accessory dwelling units and protecting that privacy. And having a second-story accessory dwelling unit is not in harmony with the intent of the ADU ordinance. I will stand for any questions, and the applicant is also here as well.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Questions for her on this? Kelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to the holding tanks, I mean, they're underground, obviously covered in concrete. Were those installed prior to this application, or were these existing tanks on the property?
I'll defer to Public Works.
Todd?
They were installed in 2023, so last year, as a part of this building permit.
As part of the build?
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going to kind of follow up on that. When we just haven't done a lot of these accessory dwelling permits here. What are the requirements for utilities for an accessory dwelling permit? Do holding tanks suffice? Vicki?
You don't see accessory dwelling units because they're typically reviewed and approved administratively. Mm-hmm. You're only seeing it today because, number one, it exceeds the height, and number two, it's a part of an oversized garage. So similar to any other residential structure, they need to meet all of the requirements set forth by the city standards and DANR regulations for on-site wastewater.
All right. Other comments or questions from the commission on this?
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Vicki? Yeah.
You know, this was a hard discussion in 23 when the review request came forward for the oversized garage. There are several accessory structures already on the property. Staff's recommendation was to deny, but there was a concession during the Planning Commission meeting that there is an element of privacy because of the wooded area. But the concern expressed by the Planning Commission, and because the applicant's letter stated that a second residence would not be a part of the structure, you were very clear in what you set forth for both the variance and the conditional use permit, is that you would allow it, but you wanted it to be known that no ADU would be permitted or a second residence. So standing in line with that analogy and knowing that they could come in for an accessory dwelling unit application elsewhere on the property that was at the one-story height, we could certainly work with the applicant on that, but In order to stay in line with the ADU regulations and the intent of the ordinance, we do not support allowing an accessory dwelling unit as a second-story element.
All right. Eric Heikes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a huge fan of the ADU. I'm a big supporter. However, because of the prior commitment, I think I'm going to vote no on this one. I think I'm not going to support this. So I think that's the sticky language that, was prior discussion and prior commitment was that they were not going to do this, and now they're going to do this. So that's the part I can't get past. It's not because I don't want the ADU. I like the ADU. I like that density, that change, that option, but the latter part is the tough part. So that's where I sit on that. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think from my perspective, as the Zoning Board of Adjustment, we have certain criteria that we need to meet, and this one specifically, there's not anything that would change to make us really want to do that. I mean, there's reasonable use of the land. There's no special circumstances that we can see that would make us change the ordinances that we have and make this, something that we can support. So I'm with Eric. I can't support this.
Sorry, I deleted you, Vicky. Can you request again? Vicky?
Mr. Chair, Karen brings up a good point. We too are in support of accessory dwelling units wherever possible. It provides additional housing options. This is a large parcel, and there could be a one-story ADU elsewhere on the property. There isn't really a hardship that we can lean on that legally allows us to support this variance. And thank you for going back to the criteria of the variance. Reasonable use of the property exists. I don't think anyone can dispute that, but there really isn't a hardship. And typically we have to meet that criteria in order to grant a variance.
Thanks, Vicky. That's kind of what I'm struggling with here is I apologize for everyone. I'm just going to talk for a second. I've been supportive of oversized garages because I think they provide a need in this community, which is, we have storage needs that exceed a lot of times the buildings on our properties. And so when I saw this, I called myself into question, like, well, why not support housing as well? I mean, people need to be in a structure a lot more than a side-by-side or something like that. But it just comes down to what you said. The current regulations on accessory dwelling units don't support this, and we open ourselves up to, usually the issue for accessory dwelling units is ground space, and if we open ourselves up to second level ADUs, that opens a whole nother class of property, so to speak, or size of lot, and that's the part I'm struggling getting over. And this is a tough one. Vince?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I remember this one, and I think that's one of the reasons why we were asking about the accessory dwelling unit and whether or not this was going to be storage, because we wanted to make it clear to the applicant at the time, at least I did, wanted to make it clear that there could have been other options for him. And I think you explained it like you did today, and that there's other areas on the land where there could be an accessory dwelling unit. It was tough to decide then, and it's tough now, but I'm with Eric and Karen and both Erics, and that I'm going to have to say no as well.
Karen?
I have one question before I make a motion, which I'm going to do. If we deny this, it just goes back to what is approved now, right? Okay. So I'm going to make a motion that we deny this request based on the fact that there's no special circumstances, there's reasonable use of the land, and anything else I need to add to that? Is that good enough? Okay, that's my motion.
All right. And Eric Heikus made the second on that motion. So the motion is to deny the variance to increase the maximum height from 15 to 19 foot 6 for a detached garage with a second story accessory dwelling unit. Karen provided the reasoning on the motion. Any discussion on the motion to deny? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's our last item on the Zoning Board of Adjustment meeting. I'd look for a motion to adjourn the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Motion to adjourn.
Vince made that motion. Brooke seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. We'll now commence the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for April 4th, 2024. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated on the left there. And if you still haven't turned off a cell phone or turned it to silent, please do so now. Items 1 through 4 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision. Are there any items 1 through 4 that staff would like removed today? Are there any items 1 through 4 that any planning commission would like removed today? 3. And any items 1, 2, or 4 that any audience member would like removed for separate consideration? Chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1, 2, and 4 in accordance with staff's recommendation with.
Motion to approve items 1, 2, and 4 in accordance with staff's recommendations.
All right, is there a second to that motion? Brooke seconded that. And Vince made the original motion. All those in favor of approving items 1, 2, and 4 in accordance with staff's recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3. Haven, would you like to address this one? Could I get you to?
Pulled that for just a couple of reasons. One, I think we seem to, I don't know that we got all of the information on the website. It seemed like the 2 attachments were the same. At least the ones I was looking at. And then I noticed that there were a lot of exceptions in this one, and some of them that we've dealt with before, and I just thought that it was worthy of some discussion for that point also. It seemed like
Sorry, Vicky.
the staff report and the attachments were the same.
Oh. Yes. Yes, you are absolutely right. That is a great catch. Why don't we have Tanner just give a real brief presentation? He can pull those graphics up, and you can see the layout, the location, the zoning. Our apologies, we missed that. Thank you very much for pointing that out.
So the preliminary subdivision plan to create 4 lots. This would be located northeast of the terminus of Sunridge Road in Pushing Place. So the property is zoned agriculture district in Pennington County. The future land use is forest conservation. Sunridge Road is located along the southern plat boundary and is classified as a proposed collector street on the city's major street plan. So this is the proposed plat. The lots will range from 10 acres to 40 acres in size. It'll be known as lots 1 through 4 of Dvorak subdivision. So the infrastructure design criteria manual says that no additional development shall be allowed on any street currently exceeding 40 dwelling units unless the second street access is provided. This area will contain more than 40 dwelling units with a single street access. Prior to a development engineering plan application, the plat must be revised to show a second access, or a exception from city council must be obtained to allow more than 40 dwelling units. This is looking north into the proposed subdivision. This is looking east along Sunridge Road, looking west along that same road. And staff is recommending approval of this application with the stipulations known in the report. So that's just a brief overview, but it's four residential lots being proposed.
Vicky?
So Haven makes a good point. There are a lot of stipulations of approval, and these are very, very standard. This is an area that is in rural design of development. It's outside the city limits, but within our 3-mile plating jurisdiction. So when we're writing these reports, another way to look at that is a what if. If I plat, what do the regulations require? And we have to look at all of the rights of way, which there is a section line along that east lot line. There is a street, and we have to determine, do they meet city street design standards? Obviously they don't. So we have to spell out in there that they need to make these improvements or secure exceptions. We anticipate that they will obtain a lot of those exceptions, but that is what we bring to you, is that this is what is currently meeting design standards and what exceptions are required. So we are in support of adding the additional density. They will need to secure the exception to the 40-unit rule. Only city council can review those. But because of their large lot size and the applicant acknowledging that they will have to provide the different fire protection, design, and suppression requirements for a property that's being subdivided, that's on a dead-end road, that does not have community water. All said and done, this does provide additional housing, and it will also be protected for water and sewer. And I would assume that the road as we see it today is pretty much how it's going to be at the end of this plat. Does that help, Haven?
I think, yeah, it helps to get a little more information on it, and I think there are a lot of stipulations that they have to meet, and I think I'm comfortable, with approving it in light of the additional requirements that they will have.
Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just out of curiosity, another submittal for a fire mitigation plan is something that follows this up, is that correct? That addresses one of those?
Tanner, do you recall if, of the 3, I have it right here, I'll tell you.
We see a lot of those in Lawrence County, just curious.
I'm not seeing that, but I don't believe this is a heavily wooded area either.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, you gotta identify yourself before I can turn your mic on. Thanks. Chip?
Good morning.
Morning.
We might have missed that in the comments, stipulations, and I'd like to add that in there. It's crucial. I mean, there's with wildland mitigation that we get in there and we mitigate the property. So basically what the mitigation does is it keeps the fire on the ground, hopefully, where it's on a crown fire, which we can't fight. When it's on the ground, we have better opportunity. The fire is not as intense because we're removing those fuels on the ground. And The reason for the fire sprinkler part was they have no fire flow out there, no hydrant system. So with them choosing the option of adding fire sprinklers to their house, we're not concerned about the fire flow because it's impossible to get out there. But then with them choosing to do this stuff, we encourage development out there. And we've done this a lot to work with the developers to be able to develop property that otherwise we just say, no, you can't do that because it doesn't follow these rules. But when they choose these stipulations, it encourages them to be able to use their property. And what helps also with the fire sprinkler system is the house fire won't spread to the forest. So the mitigation protects the house from the fire on the outside, and the building materials are also listed in there. It stops or it prevents or helps with a forest fire going in, but then the sprinkler system will assist a house fire will not go into the forest. So it's a win-win. And this is standard. ICC just came on, International Code Council has been producing these wildland WUI standards. So we're able to help. It's becoming across the country, across the nation, across the world, that we need to be doing something to protect, the people. And it's not a guarantee, all this stuff, forest fires are forest fires. And I don't want to give people a false sense of security that we did all this stuff and our house isn't going to burn down and they're going to be able to stop the forest fire. It's a tool that we use with great success, as we've seen in our city, actually, fires that come up to a property, and we had mitigated that whole area and we were able to stop the fire at that point. So thank you. It's long-winded.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
if it is the intent of the Planning Commission to acknowledge the request, may I make a suggestion that we add a stipulation that says, prior to submittal of a final plat application, the applicant shall submit a wildfire mitigation plan to the fire department for review and approval. And that allows two things. One, the plan just has to be approved. It does not have to be completed. And we have the consultants in the audience today. We're coming at them with very late information. We want to make sure that they have enough time to keep on track with their client. Our apologies for adding this in at this late date, but that might be a good compromise. Is we'll get the plan, get it in place before the final plat is submitted, and then the fire department can work with the property owner to finalize the plan.
That last part was going to be what I wanted to ask you, Chip. These plans are not just submitted to you. I mean, you're willing to help in the development of the plan, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Lieutenant Eric O'Connor, he's been up here talking to the board. He runs all that program, and then we also work with them if there's grant money available to help pay for part of the mitigation too. We try to help these properties owners out as much as we can. So yes, we go out, we mark the trees, the contractors come in, they're well aware of the standards, and it will be done, and we work with them. Usually they come in and they do it all at once, but it's a process, and it's not a cut and dry, oh, you don't have it done this day, so it takes time to get these done.
And I'm just going to throw this part out. This is a late ad, and usually I don't favor things like that, but being this is a preliminary plat, right, and there'd still be a final plat, we'd probably have this discussion with the final plat anyway, correct, Vicki?
If we didn't get it now, we couldn't require it later.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's worth the discussion, but certainly we want to be cognizant that the timing is such to add this in the middle of the meeting. We need to work with the consultant and the property owner so that this is as convenient for them. What I do like about the fire department is they'll go out on site and help them put the plan together. And there are times where there's even assistance in getting the plan implemented. So just putting it in here that we need to get a plan approved does not have to be complete, just approved.
Well, I'll leave it, if there's any further discussion from the commission, please chime in on this. I'm just saying personally, I support the idea. I was nearly affected by the Schroeder Road fire, and wildland urban interface mitigation is what saved a lot of houses, in my opinion. Janelle, would you like to address this?
Yes, just briefly. Good morning. My name is Janelle Fink. I'm with Advanced Design here on behalf of Chris Dvorak. Before the applicant submitted this application, or we submitted on his behalf, I did discuss with them the likelihood that they would be required to do wildfire mitigation and sprinkler systems and the covenants pertaining to building materials and things like that. And I also wanted to point out that probably about 10 years prior, under previous land ownership, they had already gone through a wildfire mitigation plan and removal of trees along Sunridge Road. So would be probably the south half of what you would see of lots 2, 3, and 4 have already been mitigated and just by a previous landowner. So part of those measures are already in place. And the lot development sites are along that south half of those lots 2, 3, and 4. So I think they'll find that the requirements probably aren't going to be so onerous, because I think a lot of that work has already been done.
Good information. Thank you. Vince?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Are we talking about a natural fire break on Sunridge Road? Is that what you're referring to?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
we could defer back to Chip,
Oh,
but
okay.
typically it's thinning out, removing dead trees. If there's branches and such that have fallen on the ground, that's fuel that gets removed. But again, more general in nature, just to ensure that the full scope of the property doesn't have fuel source on it.
No, I can accept that. No, thanks for the clarification, Vicki. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve with the amended, which I can't restate right now.
The added stipulation as recommended by Vicki.
With the stipulation as added by Vicki.
All right, Vince made the motion to approve item number 3 with the stipulations listed and the added stipulation by Vicki as well to develop a fire mitigation plan. And Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5.
Thank you, Chair and Commission. Today we'll be hearing 24 UR5, a conditional use permit to allow on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with a restaurant, particularly the restaurant Michelle's Tacos at 2050 West Main Street. So this is the property. It's a multi-tenant building with a number of different uses, all pretty consistent with general commercial zoning. So the site itself and most of the surrounding properties are zoned general commercial. There is some flood hazard district to the west of the property, that's Rapid Creek. There is a little bit of the 100-year floodplain on this property. There's no change to the building or the initial proposed use of the restaurant, and so there was not any requirement for the flood hazard stuff on that regard. The future land use here is mixed-use commercial, again in line with the existing and proposed use. It is on the northwest corner of Main Street and Mountain View Road, both principal arterials. Oops, I went the wrong way. This is just the elevation of the front of the property. There's another unit or suite on either side. This is the floor plan. It's a regular restaurant setup. Here we have, this is looking to the north at the front of the property. looking to the west, pointed toward Rapid Creek. To the east, we've got the southeast. There is a significant parking lot surrounding the property, as well as its Rushmore business or building plaza. And so there's quite a few other buildings surrounding the area, all of them commercial in nature. It's not within 500 feet of any of the sensitive uses. And then the northern side is bounded by that railroad track. So staff finds that the use for the on-sale liquor establishment in conjunction with the restaurant is consistent with the other uses in the area. There is another on-sale at the casino in the same building, but there's not an oversaturation of on-sale in the area. And so staff moves to, or recommends approval with the stipulations in the report, essentially that if there's any expansion or changes, that they would need to come back in for an amendment to the conditional use permit. And I'll stand for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on this item? Brooke?
So just for clarification, it's a beer and wine, correct?
Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention that. It's beer and wine-based cocktail. So there would be some level of margarita, sangria, things that are related to the Mexican restaurant, but there's not hard liquor.
That's what I was curious.
Requested.
As I read the letter from the applicant, it said margaritas, and I'm like, can you make margaritas
Yes.
without tequila?
Mhm. You can do wine-based
I
cocktails.
know it's a technicality, but I was like, listen, I just want to make sure I know what I'm doing.
I
So,
appreciate the question because I meant to say it.
okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Karen?
I'm going to make a motion to approve this item with stipulations.
All right, Karen made the motion to approve item 5, and Brooke seconded that motion, including the, I think there's just one stipulation. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 6.
Good morning again, Cassie Hayes. Item number 6, this goes along with the variance that the Zoning Board of Adjustment just denied. This is the major amendment to the conditional use permit that would have allowed the detached oversized garage with the second-story accessory dwelling unit. Based on the fact that the variance was just denied, staff is also recommending denial of this conditional major amendment to the conditional use permit as well.
Thank you. Any discussion? Brooke?
No, Mr. Chair, just motion to deny.
Okay. Brooke made the motion to deny the conditional use permit. Vince seconded that motion. Vicky, did I see a light come up on you?
I was just going to clarify that since the variance was denied, the conditional use permit must also be denied.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, well, there's a motion for denial on the floor. Any further discussion on it? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7.
Item number 7, this is ordinance amendment, file number 2408-001. This is an simple clerical correction that we found in section 1760-120, 1762-120, and 1764-120 of the code. The issue is just a very simple typing error in each section where the word "of" was incorrectly typed instead of the word "or." So this proposed amendment is simply correcting that. So staff is recommending approval of ordinance 6612 that amends the clerical errors in section 1760-120, 1762-120, and 1764-120 of the Rapid City Municipal Code.
All right, Haven made the motion to approve. And Kelly seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8.
Item number 8 is another ordinance amendment before you. This is an ordinance amendment, again, amending some clerical errors and fencing requirements in several sections within the code. The purpose of this amendment is to provide consistency for fence heights in the commercial zoning districts and correct clerical errors in a few of the affected sections, basically a reference error and a typing error as well. So currently, security and screening fence height requirements in the commercial zoning districts state that fencing shall not exceed 6 feet in height. That is inconsistent with the fencing requirements in a different section of the zoning ordinance, where it states that the fences shall be no more than 8 feet in height. So this amendment will correct the maximum height to 8 feet in the central business district, the general commercial district, the neighborhood commercial district, light industrial district, hotel motel district, office commercial district, and urban commercial districts, so that it's consistent with the fence height requirements that are referenced elsewhere. Similarly, the fencing height that is referenced for adult daycare centers and child care centers currently states that fences shall not be less than 42 inches, which is 3 feet 6 inches. Also inconsistent with the fencing section of the code. So this amendment corrects those fence height requirements to align with the 4-foot height that's referenced within the fencing requirements. Also, it is correcting a reference error in section 1718.030, where it states that travel parks and RV parks are regulated by Title 12 of the code. They're actually regulated by Title 15, so it's correcting that reference error. And finally, it is correcting a minor clerical error in section 1750.150E, where the word permit was pluralized in a place where it should have been singular. So the alterations, the amendments that we're making do not alter the intent or purpose of the affected sections, and they'll provide consistency, clarity, and cleanup. So staff is recommending approval of ordinance 6613 that amends the clerical errors and fencing requirements in section 1716.030, 1718.030, 1718.080, 1720.080, 1722.020, 1736.080, 1740.070, 1750.150, and 1766.070 of the code.
Thank you. Haven?
Yes, could somebody explain the authority of the Planning Commission with regard to adoption or amendment of city ordinances?
Vicky?
So similar to a rezone, we process ordinance amendments through based on state law and our adopted regulations that say that these shall be first considered by the Planning Commission with final action taken by council. So it's called out that you are required to review these first, and then you make a recommendation to the city council.
Oh, that answers maybe my next question. So the next step would be, this will be before the city council at some upcoming meeting for final approval.
Correct. Similar to a rezone, there'll be 2 readings at council.
Kinsley, I saw you up for a second. Do you have anything to add?
There was just an amendment that should have gotten its second reading at the last city council meeting that basically clarified that any ordinances pertaining to subdivision and to zoning could go through Planning Commission instead of Legal and Finance before going to City Council. So that's another piece. We have to wait till that goes into effect, but technically, usually ordinances would go through Legal and Finance first, because there's an ordinance that says that they need to go through Legal and Finance before going to City Council. But that's just an extra step that it sounds like City Council felt was not needed. So yeah, the normal process is it goes to you and then City Council for the 2 readings.
That actually got caught by, I think KOTA put a news blurb on it, and so I was going to ask about that. Happy it came up. I've got it clarified. Anything else on item number 8?
Move approval.
All right, Karen made the motion to approve item 8.
Second.
And Vince seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion to approve? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I think that's the end of the regular agenda today. Anything else to discuss?
Nothing today, sir.
All right. How about from the Planning Commission, Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just realized something. So by adding that wildfire protection plan requirement onto the agenda today, and thank you, Chip, for that requirement. We just did climate action work. My national organization has a whole series of recommendations on flooding and rising tides and the wildfire interface, and because of that small thing we did today, I was allowed to accomplish the platform of my national organization today. So ironically, that was kind of fun. So I didn't realize it until after the fact that we just did that, and I was like, oh wow, somebody should know about this. So I'm saying we did climate action work today. So right? And maybe we saved a life. You never know. So thank you.
Haven?
Just to comment too, that property that we were discussing, the Dvorak application is right on the edge of the Westbury fire burn in 1988. And so that area to the south and to the west of that property was all burned with the Westbury fire in 1988.
Brooke?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would like to recognize the staff members who are reading through these ordinances and finding clerical errors. Like, that cannot be a delightful job in any regard. So thank you for the work. I mean, I know you said these were coming. You've got the staff to do it. I love that we're cleaning it up, but whoever is doing that, bravo.
Vicky?
We have a long list of ordinance amendments, some with a lot of substance, that we're going to have to actually take to open houses, get the public involved and whatnot. Clerical ones, that's the low-hanging fruit, so look out. You're going to be seeing more and more of those. Thank you.
All right. Anything else today, or a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn. All right. Mike Gallagher made the motion to adjourn. Vince seconded it. Oh. Vicky? Oh, yeah. Feel free to come up. Just identify yourself once you're off.
Hi. Sorry, my first language is Spanish, so I'm going to try to do the best I can. So I just want to say thank you so much. I am the owner of Michelle's Tacos, and I really appreciated that. I hope my sales stay going up. And if you had a chance to go one of these days to try the margaritas with wine base, they are really good. They are less strong, but they are really good too.
All right.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, the motion on the floor is to adjourn. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye.
Did you get new glasses?
I did. Yeah. Old age finally caught up to me. My eyes caught up to my hair.
I know that feeling. I had to eventually have LASIK for cataracts because
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't, the long vision.